Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'll be here for the next half an hour or so talking to you about some Blue Jays baseball and lots of great stuff to talk about right now. The Jays are doing so well. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live, generally speaking, Thursdays at 6 p.m., unless there's something unusual going on. And you can find us on Jays from the Couch's YouTube channel, as well as their Facebook page or Twitter page. We stream live, so you can follow along. And if you are following along and you think of a question or a comment, please do send it in. I love the interaction. I think it makes the show just that much better to hear what you guys are thinking about. And if you don't catch the live version, no problem. When you're ready for us, we're ready for you. You can always catch the archive version on any one of those aforementioned medium, Facebook, Twitter, or the YouTube channel. And if you like the content here at Sunny Side of the Dome, there's lots more where that came from at Jays from the Couch. There's Jays from the Couch's main podcast, which is Mondays at 6 p.m., and that's hosted by our fearless leader, Jays from the Couch's founder and senior editor, Sean Doyle, and he's always got lots of interesting things, other people on there as well to share other viewpoints, and lots of fun stuff to talk about, so definitely check that out. And if you missed the live version, as well as catching an archive recording, you can actually pick that up as a radio podcast. You can download that and listen to it at your convenience. So any quality podcast carrier, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, they all pretty much have Jays from the Couch. And the other YouTube show that you should definitely check out, if you haven't already been doing so, is the On Feck Circle. That's Tuesdays at 6 p.m., and that's hosted by Steve Feck, my crazy Jays from the Couch colleague. And Steve's always got lots of interesting things to talk about. He's smart, he's funny, he has a world of knowledge about the Blue Jays and about baseball in general. So definitely worth a watch and a listen. He'll make you think about things. He always does with me, and then I think of reasons to disagree with him, but that's fine too. So, happy Thursday evening, Blue Jays fans. A very, very happy Thursday evening it is, with our Blue Jays doing just so well lately. They've got a well-earned day off today before starting a series tomorrow against the Minnesota Twins, a series that they really need to do well in, and get to all of that in a bit. Excuse me. One moment. Sorry about that. Anyway, yes, before the heart of the order, leading off as usual, transactions over the last week or so. A little bit quiet, relatively speaking, compared to some other weeks. So there's been some ups and downs, mostly pitchers, and it's been kind of interesting. So Ross Stripling, he was finally activated. He'd been on a rehab assignment, and it was kind of rumored with the doubleheader that the Jays played this past Saturday that they might activate him and use him. I actually thought they would use him to start one of those games, and instead what they did was they held him back, and he backed up Ryu, who unfortunately didn't have a good outing. Stripling coming back, pitching on September the 11th, was his first time in a major league game since August the 10th. And hopefully he was just suffering from a bit of rust. He didn't have a particularly good outing. He pitched an inning and 2/3 and gave up 3 earned runs. So we haven't seen Stripling since then. Not really sure what's happening, if they're going to put him back into the rotation, if they're going to go with a 6-man or spot starts down the stretch. And it'll be interesting to see what they do. But yeah, hopefully, because Stripling went through a stretch of games after he really struggled and into May, when he made some mechanical adjustments, and he just looked like a completely different pitcher from that point forward for most of the season up until his injury. So hopefully he can get back to having that kind of success again. Kevin Smith, unfortunately for him, he was optioned back to AAA. Kevin Smith, I'm really glad the Jays gave him a look, and in no way am I suggesting that what he's done in Major League Baseball up until this point is the best that he can ever do. Not at all. He's played in 17 games in MLB, and just about anybody, when they get their first taste of Major League Baseball, they need to adjust, because that's the best talent that there is. And if you're going to succeed, it usually takes some time. So right now, in MLB, in those 17 games, he has an OPS of 382. He did very, very well at AAA this season. And again, I'm hoping, and I really don't have any doubt that he'll get another look in MLB, assuming with the Jays, and unless they end up trading him for more immediate help. We'll see how that goes. Not this year, because trades are done for this year, but there's the off season. There's future seasons, so we'll see how that goes. Speaking of infielders, Kevin Bizio, he officially went on a rehab assignment. He's playing with the Buffalo Bisons now. And yesterday he had a very strong game. He went 3 for 5, and one of the hits was a grand slam. He also drew a walk. Now, apparently, prior to yesterday, he hadn't done so well in 3 games leading up to yesterday at AAA. He was only 1 for 10 with 5 strikeouts. Well, again, for me, and this is just my take on things, I'm kind of thinking that, again, Kevin Bizio had been out for quite some time. He has had an up and down season in terms of the injuries that he's dealt with, which I think certainly contributed to his lack of success for most of this season. He'd been out for a while with that injury. Now he's back to playing again. So I'm just thinking that he was rusty, and it took him a few games to really, now that he's facing competitive pitching again, to really get his timing back. And I'm hoping that yesterday's game was the start of something, and we'll see how that goes. So Kevin Bizio, another player who I like a lot, and all the best. Hope you're completely well. Hope you find the success that you've had in the past, and come on back and help the Jays. And then the next moves, again, it's been sort of a revolving door with the pitching staff, particularly the bullpen. So Taylor Saucedo, they needed a roster spot, so he's been optioned back to AAA Buffalo. They called up Thomas Hatch. He was, I believe he was the extra man. You're allowed an extra player for the doubleheader that they played on Saturday. So he actually started the second game of the doubleheader and pitched pretty well until he had to be, unfortunately, removed due to an injury. So hope he's doing okay, and not sure what's going to happen with him as far as the rest of the season. But yeah, so he was added. Then he was sent back down, and it's just for a few days. It's like they keep calling these guys up, using them, and then sending them back down for a fresh arm. So that also happened. Anthony Castro, hadn't seen him in quite a while with the Blue Jays. So yeah, they called him up, used him. I believe he pitched in the blowout victory on Sunday, where they scored 22 runs against the Baltimore Orioles. So he came in and pitched. Didn't do all that great, but it didn't really matter, because they were ahead by so much at that point. And now he is back down. Trent Thornton was called up. same thing. They used him, and he's now been optioned back down. And finally, the latest horse on the merry-go-round, so to speak, is Ryan Baraki. He's been called back up to the Jays. I like Ryan Baraki. I've liked him since he made his major league debut with the Jays way back in 2018. Now, they were using him in the rotation back then. Since then, he's had some injuries, and I think maybe because of the injury history that they really don't want to consider Baraki as a starter at this point. But I've always liked his talent. I think if he can put it back together, that he can be a good option as a left-hander out of the bullpen. He's been inconsistent this year, unfortunately. So we'll see how he does now that he's back with the Jays. I hope he can put it back together and be a useful piece in a really, really good team for a long time to come. And that's pretty much it for the transactions anyway over the last week. So now into the heart of the order, and what a heart it is. Wow. What an absolutely amazing time to be a Toronto Blue Jays fan. Currently, as of now, as of the start of today, basically in a three-way tie with the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. So three teams fighting for two wildcard playoff spots. The Tampa Bay Rays, although they haven't officially clinched a playoff spot, never mind the AL East division, but realistically, they have a large enough lead with not that much time left. I am expecting the Tampa Bay Rays to win the AL East division this season. So that being the case, there's two wildcard playoff spots left. And you've got the Jays, the Yankees, the Red Sox, two other teams that are realistically in contention as well. The Oakland A's started today 3.5 games back. They won today, so they're now 3 games back. And the Seattle Mariners, who they're idle today and they're 4 games back. So basically, those are the 5 teams that realistically have a shot at one of those 2 wildcard spots. Everybody else in the American League is either leading a division or they're double digits back. And realistically, at this point, with about 16 games to go, as there are for the Jays, give or take, it's they're looking at next year. That's what they should be doing anyway. So, yeah. And I mean, it wasn't even that long ago that people were writing off the Jays for this season, saying that they just dug themselves too much of a hole and it was too late. And since then, they've just absolutely gone on a tear. Of their last 19 games, they have 16 wins and only 3 losses. And for a while there, for a few weeks back in August, it seemed like they were finding a different way to lose a lot of the time since they were losing so much. And now, if anything, flip the script on its head there, it seems like they're finding new ways, different ways to win. Every day they've got a pretty solid rotation, knock on wood, most of the time. And I mean, Robbie Ray, fantastic. Jose Barrios, his last few starts for the Jays after he made an adjustment, been very, very good. I'm back to happy that they traded for him. Had a couple of rough starts there, but he found something, or Pete Walker did. Somebody found something that was fixable, and he was able to make an adjustment, and he's back to being a very good pitcher. And Alek Manoah, oh my goodness. I mean, you really couldn't ask for more from the rookie. He's just been fantastic. He goes out there most of the time. No, it's not always. He's had some shaky outings, but more often than not, those 3 guys really give the Jays a good chance to win. Steven Matz, he was rather inconsistent. He had actually been pitching very well since the beginning of August, right up until last Sunday, when the Jays, as I mentioned before, they went out and scored 22 runs. And Matz had one of his shakier outings. He gave up some runs. Didn't matter in the standings because the Jays scored so many runs that they won anyway. But that's the first start in a while that Matz really hasn't done all that well. So hopefully it was just a product of him having to sit on the bench where they hit grand slams and more grand slams, and hopefully he was. Hopefully it's nothing to be concerned about, because not every game is going to be that much of a blowout. So, and then the one, unfortunately, hi Alex, Pete Walker, starting pitcher whisperer. He is something else, honestly. I mean, he can't fix absolutely everybody. I mean, there's your Tanner Roarks and your Tyler Chatwoods, but it really seems like there is something to that just, so many of these guys that they come over, maybe they've been so elsewhere, and he finds a way to work with them and bring out the best in them. There's just so many examples that it really does seem like there's something to that. So I think the Jays are quite lucky to have him, and hopefully they hang on to him. But yeah, the one pitcher in the mix of the starting rotation that I'm actually rather concerned about is Hyun-Jin Ryu, and that's unfortunate. I mean, the Jays really invested some money in him when they signed him to a free agent deal almost 2 years ago. It was December of 2019 in the offseason there. 4 years, $80 million, and at the time, looking at his numbers, he really seemed to be one of the top pitchers in the game. I mean, he was, but he was also getting on in years a little bit in MLB terms, had some history of injuries, and I mean, he was good last year, but then unfortunately, when the Jays did get to the playoffs and they had a 3-game series against, again, the Tampa Bay Rays, and he just went out and he had one of his worst games as a Blue Jay last year in the playoffs. And I don't know about you as Blue Jays fans, but I just watched that. And even though I wasn't necessarily expecting the Jays to win that series against the Rays, I really hoped it would be closer. And I was really disappointed to see how he pitched last year in the playoffs. And this year, it's almost like flip a coin, because Ryu, when he's good, he is still really good. But then out of the blue, without any warning from me as a fan, all of a sudden he has one of his shaky outings, and you just don't know what you're going to get from him from one outing to another. Maybe the front office knows. Maybe the front office has an inkling of what's going on with him behind the scenes. Maybe there's physical issues there, and they know that he isn't 100%, and it's his turn, so he goes out and pitches anyway, and unfortunately doesn't pitch that well. But fingers crossed that the Blue Jays are going to make the playoffs, and assuming that they do, I don't think I want Ryu pitching in an elimination game. So if it's game 162 of the season and they have to win to make the playoffs, I'm hoping that it's going to be someone other than Ryu who takes the ball on that day. Because right now teams are bunched up so closely. Another scenario is that after 162 games, there could be 2 or more teams that are tied for wildcard spots. So in that case, you could end up having to play some tiebreaker games. The Monday on purpose, they have no games scheduled because there have been in the past, there have been tiebreaker scenarios. So the Jays could end up having to play the Red Sox or the Yankees or somebody to determine who gets a wild card playoff spot and whose season is over. So again, something like that. Or the wild card game itself, if they get that far. I'd be very nervous if it was Ryu starting any one of those games, because you don't know which version you're going to get, unfortunately. But, well, fingers crossed, hopefully that'll sort itself out. They have 16 games left in the regular season, and excuse me just a moment. So yeah, it's such an exciting time to be a Blue Jay fan. And really, if you happen to be a fan of any of those other teams that are in the hunt for a wild card spot, I mean, you're watching your team and getting so excited or so disappointed, depending on what they do. Their scoreboard watching. Maybe some of you have watched games of some of the rivals I have, and if not, I've at least been checking the scores. Hey again, Alex, would you consider Manoa for the one playoff game start? He's poised and still a relative mystery. That's a really good question. We were actually talking about that this past Monday on the main podcast, and my colleague Steve Feck, he actually had Manoa number one as far as if he could choose who to pitch an elimination game. He's a big Manoa fan. I'm a big Manoa fan too. I like him a lot. I think for me, if it was up to me and if everybody's rested, Robbie Ray is number one. Then Jose Barrios and Manoa is my third choice. But honestly, I think with any one of those three, they have a really good chance. Like I say, I love what Manoa has done, and you're right. I mean, he's got the demeanor. He doesn't seem to let things bother him. He just goes out and pitches. He's been really, really good more often than not. He's had a handful of starts that weren't all that good, but for the most part, he's been terrific. So if it ends up being him, I I'd like their chances. So yeah, so see how it all shakes down. And yeah, I mean it's just been so great to watch, and the team having this success. I mean, in their last 10 games, the Jays have gone 8-2, and everybody else that they're chasing, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mariners, and the Oakland A's, started today being 4 wins and 6 losses in their last 10 games. So the Toronto Blue Jays, that they not only got hot, but their rivals really got cold, and they went in the space of 10 games. They gained four games on all of those teams. So where so many fans say, it's too late and it's the middle of August or late August and they're this far back and there are too many teams to catch, I don't give up. I'm not guaranteeing them a playoff spot, obviously, but it's too early to give up, and they're close enough. Teams go on hot streaks. Now, there was no guarantee that this was going to happen, but I always believed that they had the talent, that it could happen. And I'm not completely shocked that this is happening. In fact, the other day I was watching Tim and Friends, and they had a few guys on there, and they were talking about the Toronto Blue Jays. And one of them, I believe Jeff Passan, was talking about progression to the mean instead of regression to the mean. Normally, when you're talking about the mean, it's coming back down to the mean, that people are overperforming and they're going to hit average level at some point there. But he was talking about progression to the mean for the Toronto Blue Jays, in that this team, as they are right now, has got so much talent that when they were underperforming a month ago, that's what was more of a surprise than anything. That's how I felt, and apparently that's how some other people felt too. That he's saying, if anything, the way they've been pitching lately is less of a surprise than it was a month ago, when you're looking at them and going, darn, this team has so much talent. How could they be underperforming like that? But yeah, they've gained all this ground. They're 82 and 64 currently, with 16 games to play. And fingers crossed, are you having more fun with the 2021 Jays or the 2015 Jays? Really good question. Thank you for that, Andrew. Okay. It's two different scenarios. With the 2015 Jays, when they made all those additions, and they were hot because the Jays have been hot since late August. The 2015 Jays were pretty much hot for 2 months after the trade. Once the trade deadline happened, they brought in Tulowitzki, improved the defense at shortstop. They brought in a bona fide ace in David Price, how he was back then. And something about the way that they played, and they all came together as a team. It's like, I knew in late August that the Jays were going to the playoffs. It was almost a given. So was that fun? Yes, but it was a different kind of fun. This is more it's exciting because we don't really know what's going to happen, and at the same time, it's stressful. So, I guess from a pure enjoyment standpoint, there was something about 2015 that's like, yeah, that to me back then, that looked like a team that was capable of winning the World Series. And it was such a disappointment when they ended up losing the ALCS to the Kansas City Royals. This team, I mean, anything could happen. It's more of a roller coaster, if you will. It's that the 2015 team was like you're riding high. It's like, yeah, you're riding high, and there weren't really a lot of lows until they got into the playoffs, and then things changed there. With this team, it's more of a roller coaster. It's up and down and up and down, mostly ups lately, but there's still no guarantee that they're going to get into the playoffs. But yeah, it's sure exciting to watch and to scoreboard watch. And one of the differences, obviously, between this group and the group in 2015 and 2016 is that these guys, relatively speaking, are so young. In 2015 and 2016, the guys for MLB players were so much older, and they were due to really regress to the mean, if you will. So that was never going to be a long competitive window, even if people wanted to see it or not at the time. Whereas this group, they're so young and talented, and they're still improving, and I can see them having a competitive window of of a good number of years. So I think what they need to do more than anything, and I don't want to get way ahead of myself and talk about the off season, but I think what they need to do more than anything is to keep the guys that they have here together, focus on things like re signing Robbie Ray, re signing Marcus Simeon, extending Teoscar Hernandez, who's got a couple more years of team control, and then he'd be eligible for free agency. So he's become an amazing hitter, one of the better hitters in MLB. His defense has improved. It's not great, but it's a heck of a lot better than it used to be. So things like that, maybe a couple of things that they can look at third base, a permanent solution there, try to figure out what's going on. I don't know if Santiago Espinal or Breivik Valera are necessarily the long-term solution, but see how that goes. But yeah, I think what they want to do is keep this team together, and they're really coming into their own. And I can see this. I mean, they've got Barrios through the end of next year. If they can bring back Robbie Ray, I could see them honestly challenging to win the AL East division in 2022. I mean, the Tampa Bay Rays are good, but I think the Blue Jays, in their own way, are getting to the point where they are that good. They've just taken a series against them, 2-1. They've got another series next week in Tampa Bay and in the House of Horrors that is Tropicana Field. So that will be a very interesting one to keep their eye on and see how that goes, and really hope for the best. I mean, it's just so exciting, so much so that I need another drink of water. Excuse me. Hi again, Andrew. Yes, this 2021 team has a bright future. I couldn't agree more. I mean, just the talent that they've assembled. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., a legitimate league MVP candidate, 3 other all-star players, Hernandez, Marcus Simeon, Bo Bichette. I mean, Bo Bichette is still young, Guerrero is still young, they're still improving, and they've just got so much talent. Alejandro Kirk is hitting fantastic. Just so many things. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. hitting up a storm. Talent that I've always believed in for him, and I think we've seen it to a point in prior years. He got off to a bit of a slow start this season, and he's just been great lately. Which team would you rather face in the wild card? Yeah, really good question. Such a hard one to answer too. I appreciate the question, but yeah, I think more than anything, what I want is for the Jays to be the first wild card team and have that home field advantage. And then if they're at home, and particularly if one of those guys, Ray, or if not Barrios or Manoah, if one of them are available to start that wild card game in Toronto in front of the Blue Jays fans, then I like their chances. I mean, they've shown that they can beat the Yankees. That the Yankees are a bit of a streaky team as well this year. That they had that long win streak, and then they kind of came crashing back to earth. But since then, they've sort of picked it up since the Jays went and swept them. So I don't know. I feel like if the Jays face the Yankees, they would have a decent chance to win. And yeah, if it ends up being the Oakland A's, looks like they can beat them too after that series that kind of started the big hot streak that they're on. And Mariners, I don't know. Their pitching is really good. Red Sox depends. It also depends who's available to start too. I mean, like I was saying a while back, maybe the best scenario for the Jays is to clinch the first wild card game and to have a few days off to rest the regulars and set up their rotation, and then for the Yankees and Red Sox to finish the season tied for the second wild card game. So they need to go out and play a one-game playoff, and the Yankees use Garrett Cole and the Red Sox use Chris Sale. So both those guys have been used up. Neither of them are available to pitch in the wild card game. And then the Jays would face their number 2 starter versus our number 1 and home field advantage. So, yes, in the MLB season, according to Karen, fingers crossed. Hope it all goes that way. Anyway, this has been so much fun this evening. We're almost out of time. And that brings me to Through Blue Jay Colored Glasses. So this whole episode feels like it's been through Blue Jay Colored Glasses because things are going so well, knock on wood. What more can you say? Other than, if you've been watching this show a lot of the time, most of the time, I've been saying for most of the season that I believed in this team, I believed in their talent, and I really thought that they were going to be a wild card team. Well, now they're playing themselves and have played themselves into a much better position. So now they're one of 3 teams holding on to the 2 spots as opposed to being out on the outside looking in the way Oakland and Seattle are. They've got 16 games left to play. A lot of those are against teams that don't have good records. So 3 more, 10. So of those 16, 10 of them are against either the Baltimore Orioles or the Minnesota Twins, last place team who they haven't even faced yet this year. So Josh Donaldson with the Twins, welcome back to town. Sorry, but we need to sweep your team. That's who they're up against next this weekend. But yeah, they've just got to keep their feet on the gas, and 3 more games against the Yankees, who they're trying to beat for one of those wild card spots. So those are important games. 3 more games next week against the Tampa Bay Rays. Again, just keep your fingers crossed and do the best you can against those tough teams and do what you're supposed to do against the bad teams. I believe in the Toronto Blue Jays. I believe they're going to be one of those wild card teams. I'd love to see them getting the home field advantage in that wild card game. And if this team gets into the playoffs, look out. They're a dangerous team. They've got tons of offensive weapons and a rotation that's really solidified, and even most of the bullpen. It's been a revolving door. But a lot of those guys that they put together now, they traded for Adam Simber and Trevor Richards. Jordan Romano has really become a good closer. It's been fantastic. I'm really excited to see how far this team can go. I'm excited about their future. But right now, I want to see what they can do in 2021. And yeah, but buckle your seatbelts, Blue Jays fans, because it's going to be a fun ride. And on that note, that's all I've got for you this evening. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let's go Blue Jays, and I'll see you again